Hello, future Olin All-Stars. Kyle Cronan here from the Olin Business School. I want to thank you for taking time to spend with us today. We have a jam-packed full of schedule, but before I get started, I want to give a quick shout out to one of our own. Her name is Megan Waite. Megan actually works in our admissions department, and she recently completed her MBA degree here at Olin. Congrats, Megan. She actually completed it not with just one award or honor, but she actually received two. So double kudos to Megan. So if you run into Megan, make sure to tell her congratulations. Here at the Olin family, we like to celebrate all of our graduates. And since Megan works right down the hall from me, I thought I would do this via the World Wide Web. So in the business field here, I'm going to change it. Before we get started, just want to let you know a couple quick points. All participants have been muted to reduce the background noise, so we want everyone to be able to hear. If you are having difficulty in hearing us, please raise your hand or send us a message in the chat box. One of my admissions colleagues, Jessica, is here with me, and we're monitoring this. And then there's actually going to be a question or a Q&A section, so please feel free to write your questions for that Q&A function, and we will address the questions at the end of the session, okay? I'm sure there might be some come across. Also going to provide some resources to where I pre-typed up some frequently asked questions that might help with this process. So the title of the webinar today is How Will I Fund My Graduate Education and Understanding Financial Aid Options for Graduate School. When I went through graduate school, I wish someone would have provided me this information. So I'm using my personal experience, and I'm trying to share this with you so that you're more of an informed consumer and so that you don't make some of the mistakes I did while going through school. I like doing greetings, but in the business world, time is money, especially when you work in financial services. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Here's a kind of a brief recap of how we're going to tee things up today. I'm going to lead off with institutional scholarships, follow this up with some outside scholarship information. You know, obviously everyone's interested in free money if it's possible. I'm going to briefly hit both private and federal student loans, maybe discuss some pluses, some minuses, compare the options, which is something that we want to do. Couple other things that are in the limelight. Are there any tax benefits for education? When you're developing your financial plan for success, it's important that we take into account, you know, everything we can to help you to succeed in school. And then at the end, we'll have a little bit of events, some admission events coming up, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. Sound like a good game plan? Let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, institutional scholarships. I know that that's a big question. Everyone wants to know, okay, do you have institutional scholarships? But mainly, how do I apply for these institutional scholarships? Well, the answer is yes. All candidates admitted to Olin's full-time programs are automatically considered for our merit-based Dean Scholarship. There is no separate scholarship application required. So, you know, when you apply for admission, you submit those essays. When you go through the interview, we actually look at this information and determine your eligibility for scholarship. Now, please remember these awards are limited, and the admissions committee will review your application to determine your eligibility, and they will actually notify you of any awards at the time of admission. I'm saying the admissions committee. I actually work in financial aid, so I'm actually not, I don't do the awards for the scholarships. I am the accountant, so there has to be that separation of duties here. Now, there might be other program-specific awards available as well, and I encourage you to visit the tuition and financial aid pages for your program at our website, olin.woostel.edu. The link is right there for you. There might be some options for full-time MBA versus, let's say, a specialized master's student, etc. So be sure you check out our tuition and financial aid pages for that. Moving on, outside scholarships. Do these really exist? The answer is yes, they do. And these programs are actually for both full-time and potentially part-time students as well. However, there's not a money tree where you just go pick it out. You do have to do some homework. I know you're a prospective student. You probably weren't expecting to get an assignment when you're looking to do your graduate studies, but guess what? Here's your homework assignment. I have a couple of websites that might prove useful, and it's all part of your financial plan. If you don't ask, you won't receive. So it's important to start researching these right now. Couple of links, fastweb.org. This is actually a pretty good website. My wife, while going through accounting school, received a scholarship for playing the cello, of all things, through fastweb.org. So I do recommend that site. There is a scholarship finder at studentaid.ed.gov. This is for our domestic students. A couple other useful links, gograd.org, finaid.org, and then there's a couple of international specific organizations that provide funding for students. We have had students receive scholarships from all of these sites. I actually had a part-time student use the gograd.org website and recently received a $10,000 scholarship. That was just this past fall semester. So these awards really do exist. I can't promise that, it's ample funding for everybody, but, if you do not try, you will not receive. So I do recommend that you do some homework, at least put this on your work list of things to do. Now that we've covered the free money, let's get with the loans, okay? So with student loans, they're basically broken down into two categories. There's categories of loans that are available for international students. There's categories of loans that are available for domestic students. So within these categories, I'm going to start off with private student loans. These loans are actually available for both domestic and international students. Now, with some of the programs, international students may need a U.S. cosigner for some programs. The U.S. cosigner can be, in some instances, just a permanent resident. However, some programs do require a U.S. citizen as a cosigner. Beyond that, there's also some non-cosigner loan options that might be available to help fund your education as well. I'll give a couple of examples of those a little bit later on. With these private student loans, they usually offer both variable or fixed interest rates. The variable interest rates are tied to some type of floating index with the market, LIBOR, Prime, some other rate like that. Fixed rates are exactly what they sound. They're fixed for the entire life of the loan. With private student loans, the rate that you receive is tied directly to the credit score or the credit history. The applications for these are submitted directly to your lender of choice. So the Olin Financial Services, we do not determine your credit worthiness for these loans. You have to apply with these private lenders. One thing to remember is that with private student loans, some of these loans offer disability benefits. So let's say that you take this loan and that you're in a car accident or something like that, and you can't work and you're no longer able to pay the loan. Some of these private lenders will actually waive the loan or forgive the loan as part of their consumer protection process. So when you're going through the loan details, be sure to look through those specifics, okay? We're doing long-range planning here. I know we're looking at either a 1 or 2 year graduate program, but remember, when I look at financial planning, I'm looking at 10 to 25 years. I'm investing for your success, not just while you're in the program here at Olin, but actually once you graduate from school as well. We don't have one particular lender that we say, hey, you go with this lender for a loan. You're free to use any loan that's willing to secure a private student loan for you. We do have a sample list of lenders available on our website at olin.wustl.edu. It's a historical list, and it only shows loan agencies that have been used by WashU students in the past, okay? Now, we had a couple recent additions, meaning recent just this year, so they're not on our webpage yet. So I want to make sure that I give a shout out for some specific loan options that would apply as non-cosigner options, meaning that does not require a U.S. cosigner. A couple examples of these, would be Prodigy Finance, the Paris Education Foundation, and then of course here at Olin we have a full-time MBA non-cosigner loan option. This MBA non-cosigner loan is limited to the full-time MBA program only. However, I can say that Prodigy Finance is available for full-time specialized master students. There was an email received yesterday from Prodigy letting me know that. So be sure to look them up when you have a chance. This can come in quite useful when you're developing your financial plan. Go ahead and change the slide here. I mentioned this before. Applications are submitted directly to your lender of choice. The amount that you can borrow is a combination of your lender's approval, like they may approve you for $20,000, they may approve you for $100,000, and the university's something called cost of attendance. Now, cost of attendance is the university's tuition plus fees plus the designated amount that we have set up for room, board, books, and miscellaneous expenses, okay? These cost of attendance budgets are different than what are the budgets needed to secure a visa. The cost of attendance can also be found on the university website, olin.wustl.edu. You're going to hear that a couple times going through here. When you apply for a private loan, let's say that you're doing for the 2-year MBA program, unfortunately, we can't approve 2 years of loans in one swath. There's certain periods that the U.S. government says we have to process a loan by, and a couple samples of these periods include the following. We offer summer-only loans, and these are for students that are attending summer terms. And specifically, usually that's our professional MBA program. However, if we have some MS corporate finance students who come in the summer, loans may be available for that period as well. We have fall-only loans, spring-only loans, and then there's a combination of a fall-spring application period. I know this is a lot of detail. This is very high level. I don't want to get into the details of how much should I apply for or other things like that. There will be future webinars where we drill down once you're an admitted student and once you're actually place your deposit and join us. That's when we actually have to get down to the business of this. But I want to let you know at a high level, hey, these programs are available to support you whatever semester you are enrolled here at the Olin Business School. I'm going to change the slide here. This might be a little early, but sometimes I get questions about, hey, what is the application process? Well, I try to keep the application process as simple as possible for all the students at Olin. So basically, for a private loan, you would submit an application to the lender of your choice. You would contact the Olin Graduate Financial Aid Office, and we actually have to certify the loan. When we certify, you have to be a student, you have to be registered for classes, have tuition billed. There's other checkpoints like that along the way. Typically, the soonest we can certify a loan would be probably July if you're starting the fall semester. However, if you are a professional MBA student that's looking at joining us in January, obviously your tuition will be posted sooner than that. So you would just need to contact me directly to have expedited processing. Once all the documentation is received, meaning that you filled out the application, been approved, the university, i.e. the Olin Financial Aid Office, we submit our approval and you sign disclosures, then what will happen is the university will disperse the funds directly to Washington University. They don't send it to you. They send it to the school and it's applied towards your tuition account. And these disbursements are based on the appropriate tuition bill date. So if you have a fall tuition, they will disperse it a few days before the fall semester. If you have a spring tuition, they will do the same thing. Okay? Moving on. Now, I'm going to switch gears here and we're going to go over to federal student loans. Now, federal student loans are limited only to domestic students. Domestic students meaning U.S. citizens or permanent residents. There might be a few exceptions there, and the federal student website actually gives a detail of those exceptions if you're a refugee or you fit certain categories for the visa. But the main thing on this point that I want to pull out, here in the U.S., we recently had a presidential election, and we have a new president taking over in January, which has raised some questions on what are we looking for, what are we looking at in January of 2017? Will that impact federal student aid? Well, one of the first bullet point is federal student loans were started back in 1958. So we're looking at almost 60 years in the business of federal student loans being available to help students attend school, both undergraduate and graduate. There's been some changes along the way. In 2010, we moved away from having student loans, federal student loans processed at your local bank to where everything is now funded by the U.S. Department of Education and the Treasury Department. So all loans are now what they call direct loans. So with almost 60 years in the business, I think it's, I don't want to say guaranteed, but 99.999% sure these loans will be available for you. They were available for me when I was going through school. So I don't think you need to worry about the transitions with our government. These programs have been pretty stable, and they probably will continue to be going forward. Okay, federal student loans. There's a couple slides here. Now, you international students, if you're listening, you notice that I had like 3 slides for you, and I hit some high points. We're going to have a couple more slides here for the federal student loans because our process is a little more complicated in true U.S. government fashion. So I'm going to add this here, so just bear with me. We'll do a compare the options, and then I'll provide some other information along the way. Federal student loans, how do I qualify? Well, to qualify for federal student loans, I do get this question quite a bit. You know, I never use loans, or how do I determine if I'm eligible, right? Well, to qualify for student loans, you have to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. You have to have a valid Social Security number. There are a few exceptions to this in true government fashion. You have to be registered with Selective Service. This applies to males only. And to obtain loans, you have to be enrolled at least half-time in a degree-seeking program or be an eligible degree student. The reason why I say this half-time, for our professional MBA or part-time specialized master's students, if you're looking at the program, typically that equals 4.5 credit hours per term. So I'm just kind of putting that in your mind right now if you're planning your schedules. You have to maintain satisfactory academic progress towards your degree. So the government's going to say, hey, if we're funding your loan, you have to make good grades to stay in school and to keep receiving this money, okay? Which makes sense. As a U.S. taxpayer, I want to make sure that my dollars are being used to the best extent. There will be some statements you have to sign on your application called the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA. When I say free, it literally should be free. If you're going out through this form and you find somebody that's charging you a fee for the FAFSA, you're not at the right website, okay? Just teeing that up. And you have to meet any additionally federally approved requirements. So what do these requirements mean? Sometimes when someone fills out a FAFSA, they say that you're born in a foreign country and you become a U.S. citizen or become a U.S. permanent resident. The FAFSA may flag it saying, hey, show us proof of your residency, of your green card, or your birth certificate or your visa. For example, if you're a female, you recently became married, and now your married name does not match with what is on record at the Social Security Administration, let me say it again, then we have to do a data check. So you have to provide documentation of your marriage and other items such as that. Those are little checkpoints that come along the way. I work with those every semester. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been working with about 1,000 students a year. So do the math, I'd say better than 99% of all students that apply for federal student loans actually qualify for these programs. So it's a very high approval rate. So within federal student loans, there's just not one loan. There's actually a combination of loans. The first loan I'm going to pull out is something called the Federal Direct Unsubsidized Stafford Program. This program provides up to $20,500 per academic year. So for each academic year of your program, if you're a 1-year program, it's $21,500. If you're a 2-year program, it's $20,500 for each of those academic years, totaling $41,000. There is no requirement to demonstrate need. So whether you're Kyle Cronan or let's say that you're a famous baseball player for the St. Louis Cardinals, we all qualify for the same programs. We're on opposite ends of the pay scale in case you don't know. Washington University, we determine the amount that you can borrow. And usually it's this cost of attendance number again, minus any other financial support that you receive. Other financial support would include any institutional scholarships. These programs come with a 6-month grace period before repayment is required. Interest does accrue while you're in school. You do not have to make payments while in school. However, any interest that's not paid will be capitalized to your loan upon graduation. And then this is one of those programs to where if something happens to you, if you're in a car accident, you can't pay your loans after graduation, these loans can be discharged. Unfortunately, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I have come across this scenario a couple of times where I help families with the discharge of loans. The most important thing is to protect the family, and that's why I'm here at Olin. I'm here to help the Olin family. Now let's move on to Federal Direct Graduate Plus loans. Excuse me. To qualify, you must be a graduate or professional student enrolled at least, here we go, half-time in an eligible program. The government does put a niche on this that you fully have to utilize the Stafford before we go to the higher interest rate Graduate Plus loan program. The U.S. Department of Education is the lender. With this program, they do a basic credit check, and you must not have an adverse credit history. So sometimes I get this question, you know, Kyle, I've been a graduate student for the last 5 years. I don't have income. Can I qualify for this loan? Yes, because it's not tied to income. It's tied to adverse credit history. If you're a 3-2 student, let's say that you're a WashU undergrad going directly into graduate school, and you do not have a credit history, guess what? That means you do not have an adverse credit history, so you qualify for this loan program. To put things in perspective, I have joint law students, for example, that have been in school full-time for the last 3 years who haven't had a job. They qualify for these programs each semester. So the approval rate is very, very high. The max amount of loan available is the school's cost of attendance minus any other financial aid received, i.e. that would be scholarships or any Stafford loans along the way, okay? This cost of attendance number, like I mentioned, is going to come up a couple times during our conversation. In addition, Federal Graduate Plus loans, you do not have to make payments while you're in school. They come with a 6-month deferment period. Interest does accrue. You can pay the interest along the way. However, you can also choose not to pay the interest. Any unpaid interest will be capitalized to your loan balance at graduation. As a general rule of thumb, this program can cover any remaining tuition not covered by any scholarship or Stafford loan, and it can cover tuition, fees, plus your living expenses for the program while you're going through full time, okay? For part-time students, this program is also available to help cover books, parking, or other miscellaneous expenses. Just work with the financial aid office to secure these numbers, and let's determine the budget that works best for you. With this program, it is a federal program. The loans can be discharged in the event that you're in an accident and you can no longer work, or unfortunately disability or death. Federal student loans. I gave an application process for the private student loans, so I thought it would only be fair that I do the same for federal student loans. So here's the application process, and I'm going to leave it up with 3 quick points. Step number 1, complete a 2017-18 FAFSA application at the website fafsa.ed.gov. FAFSA stands for, once again, the free application for federal student aid. So you should not be paying any fees to have this completed. Step 2, we have an institutional application form. The institutional application, that lets us know which of our graduate programs that you're going to be enrolled in. Here at Olin, I work with all the graduate programs, so whether you're a PhD, DBA in finance, executive MBA in China, executive MBA St. Louis, Denver, Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C., or plus the programs here at Olin, full-time MBA, part-time, all the specialized masters. Kind of help me figure out where I need to allocate you so that we can determine your cost of attendance budget. And then step 3 is contact Olin Financial Aid for additional instructions. Now, this application process, I don't recommend that you apply before you're admitted. I would wait till you're admitted first, because you need to focus on the application and get here to school. I can't process a loan for somebody that's not a student. So focus on admissions right here. The rest of the process for federal, just for quick points, you would have to sign in an award notification saying, yes, I want X number of dollars. There's some online counseling, promissory notes to complete. And then my final step, in which sometimes folks miss, is called follow-up. This follow-up step will just make sure, hey, have you completed all the steps to receive your federal support, okay? I'm here to help you, but it also helps if you follow the check boxes provided. So with that process, I will say if you're a professional MBA student and you're looking at joining our class in January, meaning January 2017, the FAFSA that you would actually complete would be a 2016-17 FAFSA, okay? Because we're still in this current academic year. Just contact me and I'm happy to walk you through that process. I'm going to change the slide here a little bit. I'll grab a little drink here before I go on comparing the options. Wow, I know this is a lot of detail, so please bear with me. We will have this link available for future reference, but you know, I want to make sure I'm hitting a home run and covering a lot of big points I think that a lot of folks have. Comparing the options between loans, okay? Federal student loans, they actually only offer fixed rates. The rates are 5.31 for Stafford, 6.31 for Graduate Plus. With private student loans, you have variable or fixed interest rates. With the federal programs, they actually do come with some type of loan fee. Some of your private lenders may have a loan fee, but the vast majority are not charging loan fees. What do loan fees mean? Let's say that you're doing a federal Stafford loan of $20,500. The amount applied towards your tuition would be that $20,500 minus this 1.069 loan fee. That number ends up being $20,280 and some change. However, with a private student loan, let's say that you borrow $20,000, $20,000 would apply in your student billing account and apply towards fees. That's how these loan fees work. With both programs, no repayment is usually required while you're in school. However, please remember that with private loans, there are some lenders that do ask for a minimum payment while in school. I know there's a plan that offers $25 a month, interest-only payments, etc. like that. So be careful when you're looking at your private loans to make sure that you're choosing that option that works best for you. Usually with both programs, they come with some type of grace period or deferment. Federal loans have a 6-month grace deferment period. Private student loans, they typically have a 6-month grace period. However, I have seen some loans that have a 3-month grace period. I've seen some lenders, they offer a 9-month grace period. So really it will vary by the lender and you have to look at those loan details. They both usually offer some type of forbearance or deferment options. So let's say that you're working and you're downsized by your employer for some reason, you can get a furlough on your payments, 6 months or whatever it might be. I went through that in 2005. You know, my personal experience is coming through that. And, you know, these options do work and they do help you get back on your feet. With the programs, typically, both the federal and the private student loans have no prepayment penalty. So that means, hey, you take this loan, you have 2 years of interest. And let's say that let's say that Warren Buffett calls you and says, you know, hey, Kyle, I really like you. And guess what? I'm going to pay off all your student loans. Well, you can call your lender and say, hey, I want to pay off my student loans. They will give you a payoff amount. That payoff amount will include the principal plus the interest that has only included during that period for that 2 years while you're in school. This is an example, okay? I know that there are some loan programs out there to where even if you pay the loan off early, you have to pay the entire amount of interest. Student loans do not work that way here in the U.S. So I just want to give you a little clarification point. With federal loans, there's several repayment options available. They offer income-based repayment. There's a 10-year schedule, 25-year schedule. There's graduated payments. With the private lenders, usually they offer a 10, 15, or maybe even sometimes a 20-year straight loan repayment. So there's no income type of driven plans on that. With federal loans, they do offer a slight discount for our auto pay if you sign up for auto pay on graduation. With private loans, they usually offer a little bit better options. I've seen lenders, they offer 0.50% interest rate reductions. I've seen lenders, they actually offer a partial loan forgiveness upon graduation from school if you make good grades, okay? So, you know, each of these private lenders will offer their own incentive to try and attract borrowers. My general rule of thumb is federal student loans offer the most flexible repayment options. Private student loans offer usually the better repayment incentives, okay? Pretty easy rule of thumb to follow, and I'm happy to discuss that in more detail during one of our future webinars. Let me change the screen here. Continuing on, I wanted to bring up a couple points that sometimes folks miss when they're doing their planning for success for graduate school. And this is something on tax benefits for education. Now, I have to put a disclaimer out here. I work in finance, but I cannot be your tax professional or your financial advisor on a personal level. I can only work with federal student loans. However, I can point you to certain items to look up information that may prove useful when filing tax returns, okay? My wife is a CPA, so I'll leave all that to her, but I wanna make sure that you're an informed consumer and give you a couple of quick points. First quick point, there's an IRS publication 970 where it has tax benefits for education. I believe it's chapter 5, maybe chapter 6. I do recommend that everyone take a look at that because it may prove useful after you pay your tuition when you're filing your tax returns during that year. It may help lower your overall cost of going to school. There's some recommended reading. Here's that homework part again. There was a Poets and Quants article this fall of 2016, and the article, I believe the title is Tax Court Ruling Big Win for MBAs. And this is one of those where folks have taken their MBA tuition as an itemized deduction on their tax returns, meaning a straight line item for training purposes. So be sure to look into that article. I think you'll find it very interesting. Other items that folks are available, there's a lifetime learning credit that allows you to claim up to $2,000 per student per year. And then there's also possible student loan interest deduction. So if you take out student loans and you're making monthly payments, the interest you pay may be a deductible item when you file your tax returns, okay? So this is some quick points I think that prove useful for all prospective students. And I just want to kind of tee it up so that you're an informed consumer, and when you're developing your financial plan, that you develop it with all of this in mind. So now we have some upcoming events, and I think I'm going to maybe turn this part over to Jessica, my colleague here in admissions. That way she can talk about, we have some stuff online, where we have some stuff where we're traveling, and I think there's going to be opportunity for you to come to campus. So if it's okay, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica here, okay?
Yeah, welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us. So please look on our website, olin.woostel.edu, for upcoming webinars like this one. We'll be doing some additional application tips webinars and some other webinars on career services on January 11th. Also, please look for us out on the road. We'll be traveling with Inside the MBA in the spring, so please look for us traveling to your city. And also, we will be hosting a spring campus preview day on February 4th. So there will be details and registration information about that as well on our website. So please be viewing the website for information on upcoming events.
Great, great. Thanks, Jessica. And I love the come to campus with the little Uber car there. I just think it's a great touch. Now we have some deadlines here for the fall 2017. These are actually application deadlines, as I recall. Now some of these have passed, but you'll notice that we have one coming out here soon in February 1. We also have another application deadline on April the 3rd.
And those are important, Kyle, because February 1st is our international student deadline. So if you are an international student planning to submit your application for either our master's programs or our full-time MBA, February 1st is our international student deadline.
Great, great. Yeah, and I know some of you may be looking at tuition, you may be looking at numbers, how can I afford this? I don't think that that's the decision that we need to make right now. I always encourage everyone to go ahead and apply for admission. You have to apply before you even have to make that decision, right? You have the final say. But if you don't apply, then there's no decision to make. The decision is already made for you. So be sure to get those applications in, get those essays in, and work with our admissions team to learn more about Olin. It's an opportunity, one where we can talk to you about Olin, but you can also ask us questions about Olin as well. It's a family atmosphere. We try to encourage everyone to buy in and become involved with the Olin experience. I guess this is and so we have, this is a lovely picture of where we are located here in Knight Hall. This is why I get to look at every day when I come to work. I know I'm a lucky guy. We have a little bit of time here. It looks like we're running around right about 35 after. And I want to make sure that, I probably have more questions than I can answer in our short period here. There's an Olin grad admissions at woostel.edu at the bottom of the page. Please feel free to ping any questions that you have along the way or even after this webinar, and they will forward them over to the financial services team, and we will do our best to kind of help you through that process. I do have a couple of frequently asked questions here, and I think I'm going to kind of tee these up a little bit. I have 5 that I'm going to kind of start off with. So I know I'm looking at the camera, but I'm going to look over here and look at some questions, and then we'll kind of get going on that. So first question I have is more information available about the financial aid programs online? And that answer is yes. I covered some details. And for each of the graduate programs, the full-time, specialized master's, professional MBA, each graduate program, I actually type up a financial aid summary that's available for current students, okay? However, you can access this online at campusgroups.woostel.edu. This will take you to the home page of the campus groups. If you select your program, there's a tuition and financial aid link. And then I think the document has right around 25 plus FAQs along the way. So if you have questions, I would recommend checking there first because it might help out with part of that process. Looks like I have an international loan question. Can the Olin MBA loan be used to help with financial documentation process for my visa? Oh, that's a good question. So that's a common international student question we get, and that answer is yes. The Olin MBA loan, once you place your deposit to join us, we actually send a letter saying you're guaranteed X loan to help with that process. Now, some of these private loans outside, such as Prodigy, Paris, or any other organization, I'm not sure if their loans can be used for that process or not, because we actually can't certify that loan until you have tuition, fees, and other things out there. However, they might be able to provide you a statement saying, Kyle Cronan is approved for $50,000 in support from Prodigy Finance, and that documentation might be used to kind of help with that aspect. Let's see if there's another question. I'm looking at joining the MBA program this January. Is there time to apply for financial aid? Yes, there's always time to apply for financial aid. If you're looking for the program in January, please feel free to reach out to me soon. You're never too late. In fact, sometimes I help folks sign up for loans or financial aid. We get it finalized the same week that they're starting classes. So we're here. We work year round as a team. We may take a few days off at the holiday, but our students are always on our hearts and minds, and we're never stray too far. So we're here to lend that helping hand any chance we get. Let's see. Do we apply for financial aid once a semester, or is it for a whole year? And how much do we take out? Oh, okay, that's a good question. So the question is, well, really, it depends, okay? I usually recommend that we apply for the whole year, okay? So the whole year would be a fall, spring semester. The only time where there would be exception would be that summer term only. Unfortunately, I can't rope the summer and fall and spring together. So I would recommend a whole year at one time. The max amount that you can borrow would be the cost of attendance, which would include tuition fees, room, board, book supplies, etc., like that. That information is on that campus groups page I just mentioned. I think we also have a chart at our olin.woostel.edu page on the tuition and financial aid pages that lists the cost of attendance number. Just because there's that cost of attendance doesn't mean you have to take that much. If you don't need all the money, you can decline a portion of that funds. Sometimes I have students do that. And then even if you decline it, if something happens, let's say, oh, you know, I had a medical thing come up and I spent more than my budget, we can re-access that budgeted funds during the year as long as you're still attending class. So, so there's flexibility there. The most important thing is just to reach out to the financial aid office and ask your question. I'll look over again for some more FAQs. Okay. What is the maximal possible merit aid-based scholarship that an international student master's program can receive upon admission? You know, that is a very good question. The Specialized Master Scholarship Program, actually, this is only the second year that we've offered those. So I think the amount is going to depend on how much funds is allocated for the upcoming year. Our board of trustees actually hasn't met yet, so I don't have a number on that per se. So I would say in the past, I've seen, you know, the amount to be maybe about, you know, $2,500 a semester, which would be $5,000 a year for the first 2 semesters of the program. But I have seen it range up to maybe about maybe $7,500 a semester sometimes. I'm not sure. I think it depends on the allocation of resources we have available and the budgeting. I actually don't do the awards here. I just do the accounting. So I'm actually not the best person to ask about that. I hear Jessica here. She works for S&P. She might be able to chime in here with a little bit of an answer on that. Jessica?
So all scholarships are partial tuition-based scholarships. So that was a good answer, Kyle, and that we will be meeting at the time of admissions committee and we decide those scholarship amounts at that time. I see a lot of questions about scholarship for both masters and or full-time MBA. So I would recommend that if you have more questions about scholarship or the application for scholarship, please send an email to the Olin grad admissions at woostle.edu, and our recruiters and admission staff are happy to get back to you with those questions.
Good, good. I appreciate that. And since it's determined on the admission side of the equation, like I said, I'm more the accountant for the control purposes. I think it's best asked in that. Even though it is financial aid, this is where financial aid we bridge into the admissions. But I'm also student affairs because I work with students while you're here. And I'm part of alumni relations. I actually have about 5 alums coming to see me next week. So, you know, the service that I provide beginning through school and even after you graduate, we try to cultivate these relationships. Let's see if we have any more FAQs. I see a lot of scholarships. Then this scholarship is how many people usually get merit-based scholarships. You know, honestly, I don't count the number. I work with 1,000 students a year, so I kind of just view them as, yes, scholarship, post the scholarship, make sure it's correct towards the account. I don't count the number of folks receiving scholarship. That's more done on the admission side, unfortunately.
So I also see a couple of very specialized, personalized questions that have come through. And please note that we are keeping track of these questions. So if we haven't gotten to your question, or if you have a more personalized question, we will follow up with you after the session.
Okay, that's great. I have a question here. How do student loans work? Is the money sent directly to Olin? Oh, okay, that's a good one. I think I touched on this one briefly, and we will actually I'll do another webinar where I talk specifically about loan processing. How does this work? But typically when you apply for a loan and it's approved, the funds are sent directly to Washington University, okay? Not the Olin Business School in particular, we're part of a bigger university, but to Washington University, to your student account. Every student has a student billing account. Let's give an example. Let's say that your tuition is $25,000 with fees, etc. And then let's say that you get $30,000 in loans in. I'm just trying to keep the math easy here. That would create a $5,000 credit balance. That $5,000 credit is refunded to the student after the start of the term. Remember, we have to make sure that you're here attending class before we give these monies. And then you can use that for your living expenses. So high level, that's how loans work. There's a little bit more to that process, but I don't want to go into the detail on that one right now. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions?
I think we can follow up with these.
Okay. I think we're, yeah, looking at the time, we're about 45 after, which is usually that's about as long as I can stand to hear myself talk. But I do really appreciate you taking time to visit with us today. I'm very excited about the webinar. I'm very excited, even more excited about possibly have you come visit to campus, and look forward to meeting each and every one of you. You know, we love what we do here at Olin. It's a true family event. And I want to say cheers, best wishes with the application process. Be sure to get those in, and to get those interviews in, and contact our colleagues, and just, you know, learn as much as you can about this process. Learn about what makes Olin different from the other schools that you might be reviewing. And then, you know, at the end of the day, of course, we want you to make the decision that's best for you, and we're here to support you on each step of that journey. Thank you very much for taking time, and have a great day or evening. Goodbye.